We're getting towards the end of the F1 2025 season, and it should have been a season where Ferrari were celebrating that they brought on board one of the greatest drivers of all time. However, it hasn't all been celebrations, rather the opposite. It's such a shame to see where Ferrari have been this season, and with Hamilton and Leclerc being one of the finest driver pairings in the sport, it's really not adding up to that all at the moment. Why has it been hard for Hamilton to settle into the Scuderia this season, and why are there also doubts for the 2026 season and beyond? Let's get into it. Look, I don't care what anyone says. Anyone that is a fan of Formula One, you are automatically a fan of Ferrari. That's just the way it is. You can't help it. And whilst it's always going to take a little bit of time to get used to a new team and surroundings, Hamilton's kind of looking around at the moment, looking for excuses, explanations, a bit like a John Travolta scene from Pulp Fiction, wondering what the hell is going on. If we go back to the very beginnings of this year, there was understandably so much excitement, so much buzz, and in Maranello and around the world that one of the GOATs of Formula One was joining the most iconic team on the grid in the history of the sport, the prancing horses of Ferrari. And it was a beautiful story. Hamilton joining his childhood team, living out his dream, building on the already impressive 7 Drivers' World titles that he'd accumulated across his career up to that point, and reuniting with team principal Fred Vasseur, who he had got Hamilton on board with back in a GP2 days with the ART team when he was in charge there. And let's not sugarcoat it, this was a big move for Lewis. Yes, things at Mercedes were not the halcyon days of his titles before, particularly of course in 2020 and the years prior with those incredible machines that Mercedes built for him. But many people thought once upon a time that he would stick around at Mercedes, be Mercedes through and through, and whatever point he would eclipse his 8th world title, record-breaking 8th world title with Mercedes, and call it a day. But as we know, the world had other ideas.
No! God, please, no!
So the golden opportunity to launch himself at his boyhood team, and I guess finish the book at Ferrari, was going to be the icing on the cake. Work got underway to get Hamilton settled in and set up with the Ferrari team, and get the car to the best places possible, even down to certain aspects of the parts and the feel that Lewis had been used to with his Mercedes cars beforehand. After all, if you think about it, Lewis had been with 2 teams in a lengthy stint, of course McLaren first of all, and then jump into Mercedes, both very lengthy periods, and being used to the delivery of those power units and how those kind of teams operated. They tried to tailor his car as much as possible and make it comfortable for him, requesting to fine-tune the Brembo brake pads that Ferrari uses, making adjustments to the steering wheel layout as well, clutch and gearbox paddles in a similar place of what he was accustomed to, and also repositioning button layouts to mould into that muscle memory that he'd picked up all those years across Mercedes. And this must have been a bit of a challenge on the engineering side of things for Ferrari, not because Ferrari engineers aren't smart, or any F1 team engineer for that matter, but trying to decode what Hamilton was probably trying to explain to them, how it was at Mercedes, must have been a challenge in itself, because I doubt Hamilton walked out of Brackley and bought the Mercedes handbook with him and a load of photos. Probably wouldn't have been allowed to do that. Nevertheless, all of these tiny little but important details were all adding up to giving Hamilton the best possible start and launchpad for his Ferrari career. And although the first race didn't go very well in Australia, he turned up in China, and to many fans' delight, he won the sprint around the Shanghai International Circuit. And to be fair, he bossed the race from start to finish. It was like watching vintage Hamilton just take control and charge at the front of the field, looking like all that preparation before and the hard work that had gone into integrating him into the Ferrari team had been worth it. Sadly though, that was the last time he'd win up to now. And even though there's been some strong top 5 finishes this season, it's not towards the place where he wants to be, and of course that is in P1, replicating his Mercedes era. He has been used to dominating and being on top, and the fact he's not there, particularly with Ferrari and a very strong teammate of Charles Leclerc beside him, it's gonna hurt. And with him and Leclerc this season, Leclerc 17 outscoring to Hamilton's 5 of race results, which kind of further rubs salt in the wounds on what's been a pretty tumultuous series of races in 2025. Yep, it took quite a lot of guts to put that meme up in front of you, but there's a reason why I've done that, and that's because Ferrari don't really help themselves sometimes when it comes to the strategy side of things. And I can think of a few examples this season where it's kind of added to Hamilton's woes. Number one as we've mentioned China already, I mean, he was disqualified from the main Grand Prix after winning the sprint the day before because of too much skid wear on his Ferrari. Number 2, a little bit more frustrating at the Miami Grand Prix when Lewis was approaching his teammate Charles on a different strategy, a different tyre, and overall faster compound. And let's say he didn't like how long the team left it until they swapped the cars and gave Lewis the clear air that he was craving.
In China, I got out of the way when you're on a different strategy.
Understood. We swapped the cars.
Have a tea break while you're at it. Come on.
Number 3, a couple of Grand Prix later, around the streets of Monaco in the Principality, there was a bit of a mix-up between him and his engineer, Riccardo Adami, on how far behind the top 3 he was at that time.
And it's still nearly a minute ahead.
Medium and McLaren's on hard, lapping 16.
You're not answering the question. I'm just asking, am I a minute behind or?
And then there's a more recent one here at the Las Vegas Grand Prix in qualifying where there was a bit of a mix-up in terms of whether he needed to push for doing that lap to get out of Q1. As we know, though, it transpired. He qualified, well, plumb last because he thought he hadn't crossed the line, even though he did. And he needed to push.
Hello. Keep pushing for an extra lap.
I'll be safe.
Keep pushing.
All right, I got the light.
No push.
You add up all these things together, yes, Hamilton probably had some equal part in these situations, but they didn't help themselves sometimes. And by themselves, I'm talking about the Ferrari team, the strategists, the engineers on the pit wall, when key decisions like that had to be made, which, well, we have to say isn't Ferrari's strong suit, and they keep kind of showing up that that isn't their strong suit also. I mean, look, yes, it's easy to be an armchair critic and sort of talking opinions from this point of view when you're not on the grid, you're not integrated within the team, but either way, it certainly doesn't look good when you kind of add it all up a bit logically. So it's been a tough season for Hamilton to find the sweet spot of his SF25. I think that is an understatement to say the least, and try and match his more experienced teammate within Maranello of Charles Leclerc, and to us, extract the best out of his machinery. And every interview he does, you're hoping that he's feeling a bit more positive about it, but you can see the anguish within him, whether he's trying to be hard on himself or lay blame somewhere else, doesn't want to be too harsh on the team and the car that they've given him. You can understand why it's hard for him to be constantly upbeat about the prospects when really under the surface there's probably a lot more going on there. And then when you have your own chairman and top dog getting in on the act as well, saying that you need to pipe down, it's hardly going to help morale, is it? John Elkann, yes, you might have heard that name a little bit more recently because he was a huge part of making the Lewis Hamilton move happen a few months ago, but has recently publicly stated that his drivers need to talk less and focus on driving, which does not do wonders for giving the impression that yes, Ferrari are trying to adapt and get on top of their car, but at least show there's a strong team morale and spirit to build upon. And I think for a lot of people looking in, that was kind of the latest straw that broke the camel's back in terms of putting a spotlight even more onto this situation and dynamic with Ferrari this season. So much so, people were leaving comments of Elkann out, which is just crazy given that John is such an integral part into the fabric woven into Ferrari. I mean, do you really feel it was worth John coming out with a pretty direct comment, let's be fair with that, and what seems such a crucial time and sensitive one for the team and the drivers involved, particularly Hamilton? Let me know what you think in the comments, and whilst you're there, it would be really cool if you could hit subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. Meanwhile, with all of this going on, you kind of feel that this won't be helping focus on smoothing things out in the team, especially looking forward to next season in 2026, which everyone keeps banging on about because yes, it's very important. We know it's going to be a hugely pivotal moment and juncture for teams across the grid to take advantage of this big reset and a chance for Ferrari to return to where they belong, and that's at the top. For the rest of 2025, you could guess that they're trying to nab that third place in the constructors table from Red Bull, although that looks like it's going to be a tough ask with the form that Max Verstappen is in right now, particularly in these last few races, even though he doesn't have his teammate Yuki Tsunoda behind him to mop up the extra constructor points. With that in mind, how much focus are they putting on any tweaks or minor upgrades towards these last couple of races? But then we're talking about 2026, even that seems to have its doubts from the back of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, with Lewis Hamilton coming out making comments after the Grand Prix saying he's not even looking forward to next season. He just wants this one to end. It's been a disaster. Does he know something we don't? I personally think it's a little bit of a negative roller coaster at the moment, and that mindset compounding on top of each other. And yes, he's probably feeling a little bit helpless right now. Might have said that in the spur of the moment. But I hope he'll be able to recharge and go again for next year, and at least sort of have a little bit of a firm showing in these last couple of races. And you'd like to think, taking a big macro view of this, that Ferrari's plan was to, well, if they got success in 2025, would have been a great thing, but they're thinking much more long term and take a season to integrate Hamilton into the team, that there was going to be a little bit of ironing out that needed to be done. And when Hamilton was signed for the start of 2025, I can remember at the time seeing quite a few statements from the team and interviews that the mindset was to have a bit of a long-term view over things, and that would build up to it gradually. But of course, they'd want to hit the ground running. Look, if you've been a Hamilton fan all along or on paper, this match made in heaven for Ferrari, how do you think things turn a corner from here? What do you think about it all? Is it a simple fix, or is it kind of ingrained into the culture of Ferrari and goes much deeper than Lewis and Charles themselves? Let me know in the comments below. We can have a right old debate about it after this video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this one. It'd be really cool if you could do that. It means a lot, and thank you so much for all your support so far on all of these videos. I will catch you in the next one.